Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up for the week ending Saturday, June 21st. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that I have finished 3 books that I was in the middle of, all of which count for big books of summer. These are a big book of summer is any book that is 400 pages or more. This challenge was created by Sue Jackson, and she's being assisted by her co-host this summer, Melinda, at A Web of Stories. So the first book that I finished this week that fits the challenge is Emily Tesh's novel, Some Desperate Glory. This novel is not only a big book of summer, it's also a book that I was reading for Pride Month, and it was also a buddy read with my friend Lekden at Reading from the Depths. Plus, it's the reading that we're going to be doing in July with the new Futurian Fellowship Contemporary Science Fiction Reading Group. I pushed it to June because I wanted to include it as one of my readings for Pride Month. Lekden and I will be talking later this weekend. That'll be our final discussion about the book. So I don't want to say too much about it until we've had a chance to share our ideas about it. But just briefly, this is the story of a set of twins, Kier and her brother Magnus, or Mags. And since the day they were born, they have been trained to avenge the destruction of the earth by a number of alien species. They have been raised on the Gaia station, which is the only station where the remaining human beings are living. But we discover as the novel progresses that this is also a story about brainwashing, indoctrination, and what these two have been trained to believe, both about the human race, about their own leaders on the Gaia station, about their own family, including their mother and their older sister, that what they have been trained to believe may not in fact be the truth. When command assigns Mags to a post that will mean certain death for him, and when Kier does not receive the assignment that she feels she has been training her whole life for, they decide to take matters into their own hands, and they participate in a rebellion, along with a brilliant friend of Mags and also with a captive alien. Again, Lekden and I will be talking later this weekend, so I'm sure you'll hear from both of us a little bit more about this book after we've had a chance to talk about it. I also finished this week Finnegans Wake by James Joyce. Now, this is a book that I had been reading with the Finnegans 15. We've been reading this since April, so I'm still counting it as a big book of summer. I read a good chunk of it in the months of May and June. I have done a separate video on my my most recent reflections on Finnegans Wake, and I'll put a link to that video down below. And then also we've been reading, we're having the Summer of Steinbeck, and the group read for June was Grapes of Wrath, and I also finished this week. Now, this was a reread for me. This is a novel that I've actually read many times. It's a novel that I used to teach, but I haven't taught it in a long time. I did not teach it in the most recent years of my career. So I was coming at this. I felt like I was coming at this with almost new eyes. I mean, I certainly knew the story, but it had been a long time since I lived among the Jode family. They are a family, multi-generational family, who they've been kicked off their land in Oklahoma, and they make a road trip to California in search of better opportunities. It is a heartbreaking tale of how our society can treat the weakest or the most frail, and they're certainly not weak, but they have many disadvantages. They're actually incredibly resilient and strong characters. But the novel says a lot about how we treat the poor, and I think that given our current circumstances in this country, and the situation that we are facing, the horrors that we're hearing about every single day with immigrants in this country, I think that this book took on a whole new level of meaning, I think, for everyone who was reading it or rereading it this summer. It's a devastating read. I mean, it is a book about the survival of the human spirit. There are some characters who exhibit incredible resilience and strength. Ma Jode, who's referred to as the citadel of the family, she is a force to be reckoned with. She is just one of the strongest characters I've ever read about. But this book just, it hit me very hard, and I felt like I needed, before we move on to East of Eden in July, I needed something a little bit lighter. So right now I'm in the middle of Steinbeck's Travels with Charley in Search of America, and this is nonfiction. This is a story of Steinbeck's road trip across country with Charley, his French poodle, and all of the people that he encounters along the way and that he engages in conversation. It's a beautiful book, and it has real humor in places, but it's also it's just written in a loving and lovely way, and it just feels like what I needed to read after the gut punch of Grapes of Wrath. Okay, what else? My book group also met this week, and we met to discuss Lauren Groff's Fates and Furies. Now, I've talked about this in a number of videos. I just wanted to mention that my group did meet, and we had one of the best discussions I think we have ever had. We pretty much universally despised the two main characters, but we loved the way the novel is written, and we loved the writing of Lauren Groff, and we just had an incredibly thoughtful and animated discussion about the novel. This is The Portrait of a Marriage. The first half, Fates, is the marriage basically from the husband, Lotto. His name is Lancelot, but everybody calls him Lotto. We learn about things from his perspective. And then the second half, Furies, we learn about the marriage from Mathilde's perspective, the wife. I said in another video, while he is a complete and total narcissist, she really is a sociopath. And, she lives while they do, I think, genuinely love each other and care for each other, which is unusual because they're not really people who are capable of a lot of love, but they do love each other. But she is out for revenge in any way that she can get it. She's had a horrific life, terrible traumas that become, that are revealed in the second half of the book. But she's out for blood, and we see that, really, really clearly in the second half of the novel. We talked about whether there was redemption in the novel also, and we were divided on what we thought about that. But again, just a wonderful discussion about it. And then we chose our book for the rest of this month and through the middle of July, and this is going to be Fredrik Backman's newest novel, My Friends. And I have heard only wonderful things about this book, and someone in the group had already started to read it and highly recommended it, and I really wanted to read it too. I'll just read you a little bit about it. It says in the inside cover, "The world is full of miracles, but none greater than how far a young person can be carried by someone else's belief in them. Most people don't even notice them, three tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of a wide expanse of sea. But Louisa, soon to be 18 years old and an aspiring artist herself, knows otherwise. She is determined to find out the story behind these three enigmatic figures. More than 2 decades before, in a distant seaside town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on an abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. These lost souls find in each other a reason to get up every morning, a reason to dream, and a reason to love." So I can't wait to get into this one. Some other things that happened this week. I was a guest on Elaine at Cobalt Dragon. I was a guest on her show on Thursday, where we talked about Rocket Summer and Book Trek and a bunch of other things too. And we were having natural disasters outside my house. And after about 2 hours, I had to call it quits because no exaggeration. I mean, trees were falling down all around my house. Certain areas of the Mid-Atlantic region was hit really horribly by these really just wild storms. I think the jury's still out about whether or not there were tornadoes passing through. So I had to call the show. I had to call our conversation a little bit short. I was also very proud to be a contributor this week in Roy's compilation of videos of a whole bunch of people reading James Joyce. Roy at Roy Reads Anything put together a wonderful video for Bloomsday, which was June 16th. And it was, people from the Finnegans Wake reading group and also from the Ulysses reading group reading from Dubliners, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Ulysses, and Finnegans Wake, and Roy masterfully put them all together into one long read aloud, and I will try to put a link to that video in the notes below as well. But I was really proud to be a part of that. I also this week was able to produce 5 videos. On Sunday, I did my Rocket Summer announcement video because I am honored to be a co-host of that event where we're reading classic science fiction in the month of July. I'll try to put a link to that in the notes below. I did the blind date book tag on Tuesday, which was just a lot of fun. I did Poetry Thursday, focusing on Adrienne Rich, who is probably the poet that I've been reading the longest. She's certainly the poet whose works I have, I have collected more of her works than any other poet. So that was a third video. I did another video just on my reflections on completing Finnegans Wake and just the experience of reading Finnegans Wake over the last 3 months. And now this wrap up. This is my 5th video for the week. So that, that's a pretty productive week for me, I guess. All good things, lots of good things going on this summer. So that's about it for this wrap up. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.